Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
Good evening or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to the Atlantic to you worldwide. Get yourself a cup of java and find a comfy, easy chair. And get ready for Gary and his guest on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And now, here's Gary.
And here I am on a Wednesday evening. Tonight, we got a great set of guests in. Coming in at 7:05, we're going to be talking, about UFOs, aliens, government cover-ups, and all that stuff here on Night Dreams Talk Radio. We're also going to be talking about their great book, too. So that's going to be rather fun tonight's show. I remember, James, about a year ago, there was a case. I can't remember what state it was. But a guy had a new home. He bought the property. It was surveyed. They built a beautiful home in it. But then after they were in their home for a matter of like a couple months, things started going really wrong. Went south really fast. What was happening is there were snakes. They were having snakes everywhere in their house. And then they had the exterminator come out. And the exterminator said, well, I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. You literally got hundreds and hundreds of snakes on your property. So the exterminator went out and got these people that, and these were poisonous snakes, and removed as many as they could. But here was the problem. They laid eggs or whatever they do in the walls, in the ceilings. And then guess what? More snakes and more snakes. It was so bad that the guy actually literally had to go out of his house, and they had to burn the place down because it was infested with snakes. What it was an area that snakes for generations and generations and maybe hundreds of years, it was a breeding ground. Scary, isn't it?
It is scary, and I've seen that, especially in the Southwest and in the desert areas. There is literally underground. They come there every year. They'll hibernate and mate and lay eggs and do what they do, and they will come to that for generations. I've even seen here in the Midwest big old clusters of underground and like little caves and little caverns or whatever underground of garter snakes. Now, they're not poisonous, but, when you're looking at maybe 400 or 500 of them all on top of each other and squirreling around or whatever they do, it's freaky. And if your house is on top of it and they're poisonous, yeah, that's hard to overcome that because they just keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit there and remove a whole bunch of them like this guy did at the start, but guess what? In the walls and in the ceilings, I mean, they were infested. The guy's house where here there was a beautiful home. I mean, I saw the pictures of it. Just a beautiful home. And it was just deemed unlivable. I mean, it was no way to get rid of the snakes. I mean, it was that many of them. I mean, you'd have to tear the whole walls apart. You'd have to do this. And all it would take is a couple more snakes that coming back in and doing the same cycle over again. They made the decision, along with the mortgage company, burn the place down.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what you have to do sometimes with a lot of those places. And and some land and areas of the country has a lot of sinkhole possibilities. So that means it's very porous rocks and ground underneath, and that's where the snakes like to migrate and get together. And especially in some areas, you got those rattlers. I don't know if you've ever seen a giant cluster of rattlers, but I'm going to tell you something, that's a sight, and it's hard to overcome that because you're right, they get in your walls and they lay eggs. And a good thing to do if you get up in your attic and look for any snake skins. If you see snake skins, you got them. You definitely got snakes.
That's scary right there. No, have I seen a cluster of snakes? Years ago, I was really into photography, and I went up to a place called Spokane, Washington. I went through the desert, and I saw this old windmill, and I wanted to photograph it. I didn't think of, snakes because I grew up in the other side of the state where we have very little snake issue. And so I had to go down the side of the road to this old farmland, which was about a 20-foot drop, but it sloped. So I come there with my camera. I'm looking in my camera as I'm stepping down. I'm not looking at the ground. And all of a sudden, I heard all that weird noise. I look, and there was about like 10, 15, 20 snakes, rattlesnakes of various sizes around my feet. I am, to this day, surprised I never got bit. You never heard anybody see somebody run as fast as, and then I really looked to go back up. I should have realized that, because that time of the year, even going on the road, you see snakes going across it. So, it was a scary situation to run right into them. So thank God, maybe I surprised them enough where they, if I would have hung around, they would have bit me.
Yeah, you might have spooked them too. That reminds me when I was younger, I would do a lot of exploring. I was climbing down this strip mine high wall, probably 60, 70 feet, almost straight up, but I'm climbing down it, because I was a climber. And I get close to the bottom, I'm looking down, and there's a big old copperhead just coiled up, looking right at me, just ready to strike me. And then there was a few more. They must have, and it was spring, so they must have been coming out of the rocks from the high wall, So I had no choice. I had to climb all the way back up that daggone cliff. I couldn't even get down to the bottom. But, yeah, that's what happens. You never know when you're going to see snakes, especially in the spring when they start to come out of hibernation.
I bet that scared the you-know-what out of you, too.
Well, it definitely got my attention. I was scared, but then once I had to climb back up, I was like, I was kind of mad, man. It worked. Listen, when you climb straight down a high wall, it takes some serious, you got to be focused, and one mistake and you're falling. And then I had to go all the way back up. And, it was like, oh. And, yeah, it was a little spooked.
Yeah, weren't you scared going up that if you slipped it, and lost your grip, that you'd fall into it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was on my mind the whole time. And that those rocks, it's mostly like limestone-y type, and they're kind of loose. Some of them's big, little, but a couple of them would, your foot would slip and they would give way. But it wasn't like it was straight up where you're going to fall. You had a chance to grab something else. But, it was very dangerous. And, yeah, I thought about, oh, my, if I do fall, I'm going to hurt myself. I can't move, and then I'm going to get bit hundreds of times, and I'm a goner.
Yeah, and just going up there, make sure, the branch you're grabbing, if there's any branches of anything, is not a snake. That would be a big shock, wouldn't it?
It would, and, I don't know what it was about that area, but, it was like the next year I was out there doing the same thing, but not on the high wall, and I had a feeling that something was looking at me, Gary. You can tell in the woods when something's looking at you. And I was like, I know it's behind me. I know it's behind me. So, and it was like in a little opening of this woods. So I slowly, I didn't want to make any sudden moves without knowing what's behind me. I don't know if it's wild dogs or bear or what it is. So I turn around, and there's this, huge white-tailed buck deer, but it's in rut season. And this deer, and that's a bad time to see him sometime. And this big old rack, and he's sitting there snorting at me. And I'm like, oh, Lord. He's only about maybe, 15 yards away from me. So I just slowly backpedaled, got up and behind a tree, and he slowly went his way. But, boy, it was touch and go there for a minute, I got to tell you.
Yeah, I'd be scared. Well, big time on that. Another thing, these earthquakes is going on lately. It seems like every couple days there's earthquake in L.A., Midwest, up here in Spokane. It's just one after another. They're all around about 3.5 up to 5.5 magnitude. It's scary that all of a sudden there's earthquakes going on. Have you noticed that?
Oh, my goodness. The seismic activity is really on the rise. Just yesterday I reported on that 3.8. It was in eastern Tennessee a few days ago. And, yeah, they've had them in Mexico. I think Galapagos, there was some. Northern New York. I think your area, like you were talking, Alaska's had them. All over.
Well, a lot of it, I think, has a lot like with sinkholes opening up and all this stuff. Let's face it, when they're sitting there pumping oil out of the ground, okay, what they do is after they pump out all this oil, and the oil field now is to a point where they feel it's, not going to, produce much of anything more. They'll fill it back with seawater or water.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You're right. And, a lot of people don't know, especially the fracking. And here's the kicker about that fracking. They put, I know it's over 260 some different chemicals into the ground, and they don't have to take them back out, and they don't have to tell you what they are because it falls under the secret recipe type thing with restaurants kind of code. And they pump in millions of gallons of water with that, and that forces a lot of pressure down there, and it causes, especially in Oklahoma, they claim that causes all kind of earthquakes.
Well, not just that. So, what you do is you buy property, or, they have the rights on your property, to suck the blood out of your property, as I call oil, right? And you make a little bit of money. They make a huge amount of money. But what's really, really bad is now that a couple years down the road, like 5, 10, 15 years, later, all of a sudden you can walk out your back door and you got a huge, huge sinkhole forming.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, it's sad because, especially here in the Midwest, a lot of the old farms and stuff, they're on hard times. So these oil companies, they come in and offer a boatload of cash, and so these people on hard times, they're going to take it. They're not thinking twice about it. They need that money. They're going to jump on it. And so you're right. They're doing all this to the land. And I'll tell you this much. I've seen some places that the water, Gary, coming out of their faucet, you can take a lighter to it and it will catch fire. You ever see water catch fire?
No, I actually never have, except in the movies.
No, that's a real thing. I've seen that. It's because of the gas and the pollutants and stuff that got into the water through underground, through all that, the cracks and crevices underneath. And so if it's going to do that with all the high pressure, yeah, you're going to cause seismic activity, and you're going to open up a lot of sinkholes. And I can tell you, I know a lot about the land here, all the way down from southwestern Ohio down into about halfway down into Kentucky. That's all very porous limestone. Sinkholes are very prevalent. I mean, the Corvette plant in Kentucky fell right through the floor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. They had all them vintage vets.
I remember that, the museum or whatever it was, that they decided that a sinkhole was opening up right where the cars were. Yep,
absolutely. And, Florida is known as a sinkhole state. You could be one day sitting in Florida, but there was a guy, he was two brothers, and one brother was married. They lived together, and his brother lived in the back bedroom. Well, they heard a big noise. He opened the door, and the whole room, the house, that part of the house and everything was gone. I mean, you're talking 200 foot down on the ground, and the poor guy died.
That would be really scary. You're in your living room? Could you even imagine you're in your house and you open the front door and take a step and there's a sinkhole right there? I mean, I've seen some of these sinkholes, and then some of them, because they dumped all this water in the ground where the oil was, they kind of look like a lake when they form. The sinkhole opens up and then it fills up with water immediately. Right. And, a lot of the sinkholes, especially the ones more so in the Midwest where they don't, ones down south, they can fill up water quick because, they're at sea level. But the ones in the Midwest, like Kentucky and places like that, they could go all at once. Like, there's no warning. They just boom and you're gone. It's not no slow, gradually going. It's just bam. Yeah, so we got, earth changes, the tides, the water levels coming up higher and higher. We have to worry about all these oil companies for the last, 100 years sucking the oil out of, the blood out of the, ground of sinkholes eventually forming where they have sucked out the oil. It's scary. And we got a lot of earth changes.